Hey guys, I bet you were just so excited and waiting for this third blog to come out. So, this is for my Education in the US class at Seton Hall, and this blog is going to be about chapters 1 and 2. Yes, we're backtracking in the book a little bit. So, the book starts kind of out by discussing what it means to have a wide knowledge base for a teacher, because that's like really important. A teacher needs to know a lot. It includes, they have to know about what they're teaching, they have to be competent in their subject area. Number two, they need to know how to teach. You can't have a teacher just up there telling you what you need to know, because that's not teaching, that's just telling you. So there's a big difference between teaching and actually giving information. So that's the line between knowing your subject area and knowing how to teach. Being a teacher, your knowledge base also has to include knowing about the students. You need to know what students know. You need to be able to relate to them, get when they're understanding stuff and when they're not understanding stuff. You also need to know the state and local standards, unfortunately, because you need, not unfortunately, but you need to adhere to what is supposed to be taught. You need to know how to work as a unit with parents, other teachers, and the community. You need to know how to collaborate. Also, when you enter the teaching profession, this isn't one of those part of the knowledge base, but you need to know that you're going to be a lifelong learner. You need to be constantly evaluating what you're doing. You have to realize, ask yourself constantly, is it working? Are the students understanding what they're supposed to be getting to know? You're always going to be learning from the students, from developments in curriculum. It's never ending. And you also need to know how to research. You need to do more work than you have to. You need to go beyond the lines of what the students are displaying. You need to really delve deeper into their brains to see. And you need to also research other ways you can possibly be conveying what you're teaching. So, another thing about being a teacher is there's a difference between being a teacher and being an effective teacher. Part of being an effective teacher includes communicating. You need to provide the students an opportunity to learn. You need to have great leadership and organizational skills. You need to have to know how to pace the curriculum and instruction for individual learners. This is one that's really important because it's affected me in my life, in my schooling. I had one teacher in particular who she just had everything laid out what she was going to do, and there was no stopping her, even if nobody understood what was going on. It was your duty to learn it. So she did not really pace the curriculum well because she knew what she had to do, and she wasn't willing to change that whatsoever. So, I mean, yes, she did have a plan, but she didn't really take the students into mind, and she definitely did not take individual learners into mind. And another thing is you need to know how to teach actively. You need to know how to change stuff as you go. You need to know how to develop with the students. And you need to have it student-centered, basically. You also need to have a good sense of teacher efficacy. You need to have belief in your ability to teach and the student's ability to learn. If you're a teacher not thinking students can learn, they're not going to learn. If you don't think you can teach, you can't teach. So that's important. This teacher accountability movement is another interesting movement. Teachers need to be accountable for making sure the students learn what they have to. And part of this is being observed by the pros-product perspective, which is the relationship between the teacher's practices and the student's outcome. Basically, it's usually based on the student's academic achievement. Accountability, teachers need to be accountable for teaching what they have to, but personally, I think sometimes it's hard, because especially if you're basing it off of standardized tests, because then teachers will just start to teach to the test, which I definitely don't think is right. Okay, upon entering the profession of being a teacher, you have to understand that teachers are decision makers and planners. You're going to be making decisions every single second of every single day. They can be the bigger decision of what to teach, how to teach it, but then smaller decisions, who to call on. So you need to know you're a decision maker. You're also a planner. You need to learn how to plan stuff accordingly. You need to expect the unexpected as a teacher. Another thing teachers are responsible for is building positive learning environments. This includes the physical environment. What does the classroom look like? It has to be a presentable classroom. The organization, the process, what you do first, what you do second, what you do third, what's usually done day to day in your class. That's another important part. That can be part of the planning, but it's also part of the building and a positive experience. And then you need to learn how to incorporate the different sociological, political, economical, and cultural differences within the classroom because you don't want to alienate any students. Um, the constructivist approach is something that I never heard it before, but I didn't agree with it. It basically said students construct a body of knowledge from experience and prior knowledge, not from direct instruction. I think that's wrong. I don't think it's right to say there's no direct instruction involved in their knowledge. Then what would I be there for in the classroom? I completely disagree with this constructivist approach. I don't like it, and it shocked me that somebody would even be willing to have this approach as a teacher. But being a teacher comes along with a lot of rewards. There's a lot of intrinsic rewards. It's like you love learning, you love teaching, you love the desire to work with young people, and your desire to help other people. You find fulfillment in this, and I know I'm going to find fulfillment in that because that's why I want to be a teacher. I want to help other people. But there's also a lot of extrinsic rewards, which kind of are nice as well. Your lifestyle. You get summers off, even though I'm not the type of person who's going to take summers off. I'm going to get another job over the summer. But it's nice to have a change in pace every once in a while. You have security. And you also have a community rep. They're going to respect you for the most part. Education reform has been happening for a while, starting in the 1950s, really. No Child Left Behind reinvigorated this. The one major part I want to discuss about it is students with disabilities. I think it's so important in this latest push to include the students more, to mainstream the special ed students who do not need to be taken out. That's one part of this reform movement that I am a huge fan of. I think it's so important because you don't want to have the stigma of being a special ed student having to be outside of the classroom. That's not right. And it's part of the reason why I want to go into the special ed area. I'm not sure if I want to do math or special ed, but special ed, I think there's too much of a stigma that goes along with it. So this reform movement that's happening now, I think is great, and I think it's going to open a lot more doors and open to a lot more inclusion, which is needed. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to discuss kind of shocked me a little bit. It basically equated that teachers are on the same level of professionalism as doctors and lawyers. That was really interesting to me. I never really thought about it, but it made sense. Teachers are in charge of a lot of things. They're in charge of making sure the content knowledge is there in the students. They have to know it, and they have to be able to put it onto the students. They have to, I don't know how to say this word, so don't judge me. The pedagogical content skills and knowledge, basically they need to know how to teach. That's basically what it's saying. And then you have to have the professional pedagogical knowledge and skills. Legally and ethically, you have to know how to portray this. You need to know how to put a moral standard and show that to the students. Also, you're in charge of student learning. You have to be able to put in developmentally appropriate practices. You need to learn what students need at what grade level. So there's going to be differences everywhere you're teaching. And then most of all, you're in charge of your professional disposition. You're going to have to be in charge of how you interact with students, how you interact with your peers, your administrators, the parents, and the community. You're in charge of all of this. This is completely a professional world teaching. One thing I'm a huge proponent of that's involved in the professional disposition is advocacy. I think advocacy is so important. Teachers need to be willing to advocate for their students. They need to fight for what their students need. So that's just one of my biggest things. I know I'm going to try to be the biggest advocate for my students I can be possible. Okay, now it talked about how to be a professional. One of the ways was through professional development schools. I didn't even know those existed, so I was kind of reading it, and I'm like, wow. Basically, it's when a school district teams up with the college or university, and they work to improve the teachers, and therefore improve the student learning. To me, that's a really, really interesting idea, and I kind of like it, because it make sure that teachers are constantly evolving and learning, and they're not going to get stuck in the same practices forever. Professional development. You gotta love those professional development days as students. You either get a half day or no school. Gotta love them. But it's even more important because it impacts the students. I mean, I know I saw impacts like this past year when I was a senior. Project-based learning was one of the biggest things that they were implementing through this professional development. And one of my teachers in my Spanish class based a whole unit on project-based learning, and it was one of my favorite lessons that I learned. So, kind of professional development does matter, even though it is just a day off for the students. Also, you can take part in the different associations that exist for teachers. There's the AFT, which is the American Federation for Teachers, and the NEA, which is National Education Association. They influence the conditions of employment. They dictate what you're going to get as a teacher, which you have to be on their side a little bit. Another program that exists for teachers is the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. That one matters to me because I love math, so I just wanted to kind of mention that that also exists. Recently there's been a push to change teacher education. They think that the Carnegie Task Force on Teaching as a Profession kind of attacked teachers in a sense. Not really attacked, that's probably not the right word, it wasn't that strong, but they wrote a whole letter about how teachers need to be more prepared. Which, yeah, nobody can get hurt from being more prepared, but I think because teachers teach students and they're constantly under fire, they're constantly being watched by parents in the community. So I think that if it were any other profession, they probably wouldn't have been attacked as much. But 3 things that were proposed underneath A Nation Prepared for Teachers for the 21st Century, which was part of the Carnegie Task Force on Teaching as a Profession, was that teachers get more education. Things that were proposed after that included the Holmes Project, the Project 30 Alliance, which means that teachers are supposed to have more liberal arts credits, which, I mean, whatever. And then the Renaissance Group, I think they were very important because they propose teachers having more field experience before their senior year, which I think is so important. You can't be thrown into a teaching classroom. One thing that was discussed in the text was the diversity of teachers at this moment. It is severely, severely, severely lacking. I'm going to read you some numbers that are in here. The total number of men is only 1 million compared to almost 2.5 million females. That's a big difference. Me, being a male, I think there definitely needs to be more male teachers. There's a huge difference in the race of the teachers as well. There are a total of 3 million white teachers, and the number for any minority does not even equal 1 million. So I think there does have to be more diversity, but it's hard to say. Like, maybe that their calling isn't in education, so I don't think it's fair to try and go out in the workforce and get people who are of minorities to become teachers, because teaching may not be in their heart, which is also a tiny little issue I have with the alternative teachers education, because I think that sometimes it's that they realize that what they were doing they don't like, so they think teaching is a resource, they can get a summer off. I think that may be one issue with the alternative teacher movement, like the alternative teacher education movement. Okay, now I'm getting ready to wrap this up, so clearly I think they gave us a whole checklist in the book. I can show you the checklist. There's literally only one thing I checked off that I don't completely agree with, whether I want, like, this is basically saying, is teaching for you? The only thing I didn't say, it posed a question, do you look forward to reading professional journals? I'm not sure if I look forward to reading professional journals, but, I mean, if I have to do that as a teacher to be more effective, I mean, I will do it. But everything else I said yes to, so I think that shows that I pretty much do strongly want to be a teacher. The last thing I'm going to mention is merit and performance-based pay. Completely shocked me that this still existed. I didn't think that it actually existed anymore. I thought that all teachers were paid the same based on steps. I didn't think there were any districts that did merit based off of what you do or performance based off how your students achieve. It's hard to say that it has a place or not, because it's so controversial. But some teachers don't do their job, which they should be removed. But otherwise, I think standardized tests have no dictation on what a teacher should make. So it's really hard to say. So basically, at the conclusion of these two chapters, I learned that teachers are professionals, and I learned how you can be an effective teacher, what you need to do, and what you need to know to be a teacher. That's basically what this was about, and I found it really intriguing. I'll see you guys next time for, I believe it's a Chapter 8 block, so stay tuned for that. I'll see you soon.